Kelly's Heroes was not just another war movie. It was a battlefield of egos, explosions, and near disasters that almost blew up more than just on screen. What audiences saw as a quirky World War II comedy was actually a production spiraling into chaos. Behind the camera, tempers erupted, budgets collapsed, and real military hardware nearly killed cast members. The film that would become a cult classic was nearly destroyed by the very chaos it depicted on screen. Today, we are pulling the curtain on 20 wild facts about Kelly's Heroes that will change how you see this film forever. And stick around until the end for a bonus fact about the movie's connection to a completely different genre that even hardcore fans do not know. Number 20, the secret studio sabotage. What audiences did not know was that Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer executives actively tried to undermine their own film during production. The studio, already hemorrhaging money from other flops, resented the escalating budget of Kelly's Heroes and secretly hoped it would fail. They delayed crucial equipment shipments, lost important paperwork, and even spread rumors about the production to create negative press. Director Brian G. Hutton fought back by secretly filming with local Yugoslav crews when studio resources were deliberately withheld. We were making a movie about soldiers behind enemy lines, and that is exactly what we were doing behind enemy lines at our own studio, Hutton later confessed. This studio sabotage extended to the marketing department, which created intentionally misleading posters that suggested the film was a straightforward war drama rather than the comedy it actually was, deliberately confusing potential audiences. Number 19, the real-life post-traumatic stress disorder that shaped the film. Clint Eastwood was not just playing a soldier, he was channeling his own military trauma during filming. Eastwood had been drafted during the Korean War, though he never saw combat, and witnessed the psychological toll on returning veterans. During particularly intense scenes, Eastwood would sometimes become withdrawn and unresponsive, worrying cast and crew. Telly Savalas, who had actually served in World War II, confronted Eastwood about his behavior between takes. "You are bringing something real to that is not in the script," Savalas told him. Eastwood admitted he was drawing on stories from veterans he had known and the psychological burden they carried. This emotional authenticity explains why Kelly's Heroes, despite its comedic elements, contains moments of surprising depth about the psychological cost of war that most films of its era glossed over. Number 18, the dangerous live ammunition scandal. The production faced a near catastrophe when it was discovered that the Yugoslav military had provided actual live ammunition for several scenes instead of blanks. The error was not discovered until after filming several battle sequences where actors were firing at each other. Donald Sutherland later recalled, "We were doing this scene where we are shooting at the Germans, and between takes, one of the Yugoslav crew members comes running onto set, screaming something in Serbian. Turns out we had been firing live rounds at each other. The incident caused a shutdown of production for 3 days while all ammunition was inspected and replaced. Several crew members were fired, and the relationship between the American production team and their Yugoslav host became permanently strained." Eastwood, who had experience with firearms from his westerns, was reportedly furious and personally checked every weapon thereafter. Number 17, the censorship battle over the negative portrayal of allies. Kelly's Heroes faced unexpected censorship battles not for violence or language, but for its portrayal of American soldiers as flawed, sometimes cowardly, and motivated by greed. The United States Department of Defense, which had initially agreed to provide support for the film, withdrew its cooperation after reading the script. Pentagon officials objected to scenes showing soldiers questioning orders, openly criticizing their superiors, and abandoning their posts to pursue personal gain. The military wanted another flag-waving propaganda piece, producer Sidney Beckerman later revealed. They could not stomach the idea that American soldiers might be anything but perfect heroes. This rejection forced the production to rely entirely on Yugoslav military equipment and advisors, which actually contributed to the film's distinctive look and ultimately its more nuanced perspective on warfare. Number 16, the Intoxicated filming sessions that created iconic scenes. Several of the film's most memorable scenes were filmed under the influence of real alcohol. Don Rickles, known for his improvisational skills, would often drink before takes to loosen up his character. This habit became so problematic that director Brian G. Hutton eventually scheduled all of Rickles' most important scenes for early morning before the actor had time to drink. What audiences did not know was that the scene where Rickles' character Crap Game negotiates with the German tank commander was entirely improvised, while both actors were significantly intoxicated. We were supposed to be shooting a serious negotiation scene, but Don and the German actor had been drinking at lunch, Hutton recalled. What they came up with was funnier than anything in the script, so we just kept rolling. This scene became one of the film's most quoted moments. Number 15, the tension between Eastwood and Savalas that almost turned physical. The on-screen chemistry between Clint Eastwood and Telly Savalas masked genuine tension between the two stars. Eastwood, increasingly protective of his emerging superstar status, resented sharing screen time with the Emmy-winning Savalas. The friction reached its boiling point during the filming of the minefield scene when Savalas began ad-libbing lines that Eastwood felt were stealing focus from his character. Between takes, Eastwood confronted Savalas, telling him to stick to the script. Savalas, a veteran actor with extensive theater experience, responded that Eastwood would not know good acting if it bit him on the ass. The argument escalated until director Brian G. Hutton had to physically separate the two. For the remainder of the shoot, they spoke only when necessary and communicated through intermediaries for several scenes. Remarkably, none of this tension is visible in their performances. Number 14, the Yugoslav government's secret surveillance of the production. What audiences did not know was that the entire production was under constant surveillance by Yugoslav secret police. The film was shot in Yugoslavia primarily for financial reasons, but the communist government under Josip Broz Tito viewed the American production with suspicion. Microphones were hidden in hotel rooms, actors were followed when they ventured into towns, and all local crew members were required to file daily reports on the Americans' activities. Donald Sutherland, who had been involved in anti-war activism, was particularly closely monitored. "We knew we were being watched," Sutherland later admitted. "The hotel rooms were bugged. Our phones were tapped. It was like making a movie behind the Iron Curtain because we were." This surveillance created an atmosphere of paranoia that actually enhanced some of the film's tension, particularly in scenes where the characters are trying to avoid detection by enemy forces. Number 13, the original, darker ending that was abandoned. Kelly's Heroes originally had a significantly darker ending that was abandoned after test screenings. In the original version, after successfully robbing the bank, most of the main characters are killed trying to escape with the gold. Only Kelly and a few others survive, and the final scene shows Kelly looking at the gold, realizing it cost his friends' lives, and leaving it behind as he walks away, shattered. Test audiences in 1970 found this ending too bleak, coming just a few years after the tumultuous events of the late 1960s. The studio ordered reshoots to create the more upbeat ending where the characters successfully escape with the gold. "We were trying to make a statement about the futility of war and greed," director Brian G. Hutton later explained, but audiences in 1970 had already seen enough darkness in real life. The original ending was reportedly destroyed, though rumors persist that a copy exists in the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer archives. Number 12, the near-fatal tank accident that could have killed multiple stars. During filming of the climactic tank battle, a malfunction caused one of the vintage Sherman tanks to careen out of control toward a group of actors, including Clint Eastwood, Telly Savalas, and Donald Sutherland. The tank's brakes had failed, and it was only the quick thinking of a Yugoslav crew member who managed to jump into the tank and engage the emergency brake that prevented a tragedy. "We were filming the scene where the tanks are supposed to stop just short of us," Eastwood recalled in a later interview. "Then we hear this yelling in Serbian, and this tank is bearing down on us full speed. Don Sutherland just froze, Telly dove one way, I dove the other, and this Yugoslav guy leaps onto the moving tank and gets it stopped just feet from us. The incident shut down production for a week while safety protocols were reviewed, and Eastwood, who had final cut approval, later removed the scene from the film entirely." Number 11, the secret rivalry with MASH that shaped the film's tone. Kelly's Heroes was developed and filmed in direct competition with Robert Altman's MASH, 1970, another war comedy that would be released the same year. The two productions were in a secret race to theaters, with each trying to outdo the other in terms of anti-war satire and dark humor. Metro, Goldwyn-Mayer executives were particularly concerned about MASH, which had generated significant buzz after its successful Cannes Film Festival screening. This rivalry led to last-minute script changes on Kelly's Heroes to make it more satirical and less conventional than originally planned. Scenes were added specifically to one-up MASH's irreverent take on military authority. We would hear rumors about what Altman was doing and rush to incorporate something edgier. Screenwriter Troy Kennedy Martin later admitted, ironically, while MASH became the more critically acclaimed film, Kelly's Heroes developed the more enduring cult following, particularly among military personnel who appreciated its more authentic approach to combat. Number 10, the real Nazi gold connection that inspired the story. The screenplay for Kelly's Heroes was inspired by a little-known true story about Nazi gold discovered by American soldiers in the final days of World War II. Writer Troy Kennedy Martin had heard rumors from his uncle, who served in Army intelligence, about a small group of soldiers who had discovered a cache of Nazi gold in a Bavarian village and attempted to smuggle it out of Germany. While the real incident ended with the soldiers being caught and court-martialed, Martin fictionalized the story to create a more audience-friendly narrative. My uncle told me about these guys who found this gold and tried to keep it for themselves, Martin explained. They were not bad guys, just ordinary soldiers who saw an opportunity in the chaos of war's end. I thought there was something human and relatable in that. This connection to real events gave the story an authenticity that resonated with audiences, even if most viewers assumed it was pure fiction. Number 9, the international incident that almost canceled the film. Production on Kelly's Heroes nearly caused an international incident when the AWOL Yugoslav military, which was providing tanks and personnel for the film, was accidentally drawn into a real border skirmish during filming. While shooting a scene near the Italian border, a Yugoslav tank unit that was supposed to be simulating combat for the movie accidentally crossed into Italian territory, triggering a response from Italian border guards. The Italian government, which had no knowledge of the film production, initially believed it was a genuine invasion attempt. The situation escalated quickly, with both sides mobilizing actual military units before the misunderstanding was cleared up. We are filming this battle scene and suddenly we see real Italian soldiers with their weapons pointed at our German tanks, director Brian G. Hutton later recalled. For a minute there, I think we started World War III. The incident required diplomatic intervention and almost led to the production being expelled from Yugoslavia. Number 8, the casting war over Donald Sutherland's role. Donald Sutherland's iconic performance as Oddball was nearly cast with someone else entirely, and the role was originally intended to be much smaller. The studio wanted a known comedian like Don Knotts or Dick Van Dyke to play the tank commander, believing the part needed a traditional comic actor. Director Brian G. Hutton fought for Sutherland, who had impressed him in MASH, but the studio resisted due to Sutherland's relative obscurity at the time. What audiences did not know was that Sutherland was initially offered only a 3-day shoot with minimal dialogue. The studio saw Oddball as a throwaway character, Sutherland later revealed, but Brian and I kept adding scenes and expanding the role. By the end, I was working for months and had created one of the most memorable characters in the film. This expansion of Sutherland's role created tension with other actors, particularly Telly Savalas, who felt his own character was being diminished to accommodate Oddball's growing presence. Number 7. The real post-traumatic stress disorder, suffering that haunted the set. Several of the Yugoslav extras and military personnel working on the film were actual World War II veterans who suffered from what we now recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder. The realistic battle scenes, explosions, and gunfire triggered traumatic memories for some of these veterans, leading to emotional breakdowns during filming. The American cast and crew, initially unaware of this issue, were confused and sometimes frustrated by what they perceived as unprofessional behavior. We are filming this battle scene, and one of the Yugoslav guys just starts crying and shaking uncontrollably, Clint Eastwood later recalled. We thought he was having some kind of medical emergency, but our translator explained that the explosions and sounds were bringing back terrible memories for him. This realization led to significant changes in how battle scenes were filmed, with additional safety measures and psychological support provided for the Yugoslav veterans working on the production. Number 6, the secret message hidden in the film's soundtrack. The film's soundtrack, composed by Lalo Schifrin, contains a hidden musical message that most viewers completely miss. Schifrin, who had previously scored Bullet and Mission Impossible, embedded Morse code messages within several musical cues. These messages, when translated, include phrases like "war is hell" and "money cannot buy happiness," themes that directly contradict the film's more light-hearted treatment of war and greed. I wanted to create a musical counterpoint to what was happening on screen, Schifrin later explained. The film is essentially a comedy about war and greed, but I wanted to remind audiences of the serious underlying issues. The Morse code messages are most prominently featured during the bank robbery scene and the final tank battle, where the driving rhythms of the music contain these hidden messages that can only be detected when the music is slowed down significantly. Number 5, the dangerous stunt that injured dozens of Yugoslav soldiers. During filming of the climactic battle sequence, a planned explosion went wrong, injuring more than 24 Yugoslav soldiers who were serving as extras. The scene called for a series of controlled explosions to simulate artillery fire, but a miscalculation caused one explosion to be significantly larger than intended. The resulting blast sent shrapnel flying toward the soldiers, many of whom were actual military personnel rather than professional actors. The incident was covered up by both the production company and Yugoslav authorities, who did not want negative publicity about the film. "We had these guys with real injuries, but we had to keep shooting," one crew member later admitted. The Yugoslav government did not want it known that their soldiers were hurt making an American movie. The injured soldiers were reportedly compensated quietly, but the incident created lasting tension between the American production and their Yugoslav hosts. Number 4, the political subtext that almost got the film banned. Kelly's Heroes contains a subtle but pointed political subtext about the Vietnam War that almost got the film banned in several countries. Released in 1970, at the height of anti-war sentiment, the film was seen by some government officials as an allegory for American involvement in Vietnam. The portrayal of soldiers questioning authority, pursuing personal gain rather than military objectives, and generally disregarding the chain of command was considered subversive by several conservative governments. The film was banned in Greece and almost banned in Spain because authorities there recognized the Vietnam allegory, producer Sidney Beckerman later revealed. They saw a film showing American soldiers disobeying orders and pursuing their own interests, and they connected it directly to what was happening in Southeast Asia. This political dimension of the film was largely lost on American audiences, but was recognized by international viewers, particularly in countries with their own political tensions. Number 3, the massive budget overruns that nearly bankrupted the production. Kelly's Heroes went significantly over budget during production, with costs escalating from the original $4 million to over $8.5 million, a staggering amount for 1970. The budget overruns were caused by numerous factors, including the extended shooting schedule, expensive practical effects, and the logistical challenges of filming in Yugoslavia. At one point, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer executives flew to Yugoslavia to shut down production, but were convinced to continue only after Clint Eastwood agreed to defer part of his salary. "The money was just disappearing," director Brian G. Hutton later admitted. "Every day we were there, costs were mounting. The Yugoslav government kept raising prices for equipment and personnel. The weather would turn and we would lose days of shooting. It was a financial disaster." The film's eventual box office performance, while not spectacular, was enough to recoup the production costs, but only after a significant marketing campaign that emphasized the star power of Eastwood rather than the film's war comedy elements. Number 2, the intense conflict between Eastwood and the director. Behind the scenes, Clint Eastwood and director Brian G. Hutton engaged in a prolonged battle for creative control that threatened to derail the entire production. Eastwood, already a major star after the success of the Dollars trilogy, and Dirty Harry had strong opinions about how his character should be portrayed and frequently clashed with Hutton over dialogue, staging, and character motivation. The tension escalated to the point where Eastwood would sometimes refuse to shoot scenes as written, insisting on his own interpretations. Clint wanted Kelly to be more like his man with no-name character, stoic, cynical, and ultimately moral, Hutton later explained. But the script called for a more nuanced portrayal of a man who evolves from self-interest to genuine leadership. The conflict reached its peak during the filming of Kelly's speech to convince the men to join the bank robbery. Eastwood refused to deliver the speech as written, resulting in a standoff that lasted several hours before a compromise was reached. This power struggle between star and director is invisible in the final film, but created significant tension throughout production. Number 1, the secret alternate version that only aired once. What virtually no one knows is that a completely different version of Kelly's Heroes was created for television broadcast that aired only once on ABC in 1975. This alternate version contained approximately 25 minutes of deleted scenes, including a darker opening showing Kelly's unit in actual combat before the main story begins, an extended subplot about the German tank commander's background, and a more explicit anti-war monologue by Oddball during the final battle. This version was prepared for a special presentation called the War Movie Event, but was pulled from future broadcasts after complaints from viewers who found the additional scenes too grim compared to the theatrical release. The network destroyed most copies of this version, but a single 16mm print was reportedly saved by an ABC archivist and has since become one of the most sought-after lost film versions among movie collectors. The television version was closer to what we originally intended, director Brian G. Hutton later claimed. It showed more of the reality of war and less of the comedy, but audiences in the mid-70s were not ready for that. Bonus fact, how Kelly's Heroes secretly shaped a video game legend. The bonus fact that even most film historians do not know is that Kelly's Heroes directly inspired the creation of the iconic video game franchise Metal Gear. The game's creator, Hideo Kojima, has cited the film as a primary influence on the series' blend of stealth action, military hardware, and quirky characters. In particular, the character of Oddball with his unorthodox methods, philosophical monologues, and distinctive tank served as a direct inspiration for the character of Solid Snake. Kojima even incorporated specific visual references to the film, including the scene where tanks emerge from behind a smoke screen, which appears in multiple Metal Gear games. This connection between the 1970 war comedy and the groundbreaking video game series remains one of the most surprising and least known cultural influences of Kelly's Heroes. Kelly's Heroes stands as a testament to the chaos that can create cinematic magic. What emerged from international incidents, budget disasters, and creative conflicts was a film that defied categorization, neither pure comedy nor serious war drama, but something in between that captured the complex relationship between ordinary soldiers and the extraordinary circumstances they find themselves in. The film's enduring legacy is not just in its memorable quotes or iconic performances, but in how it revealed the humanity beneath the uniforms of war. Behind the scenes turmoil created on-screen authenticity that still resonates with audiences and military personnel alike. If you enjoyed this look behind the curtain of one of Hollywood's most chaotic productions, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We have got more secrets from your favorite movies coming soon. Remember, in war and in filmmaking, sometimes the craziest plans are the ones that work out best.